everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Athlete Climate Academy. And today we are we're very proud to have Christophe Ogier with us. He's a top alpinist. He just won the Piolets, which is one of the biggest achievements in mountaineering after a first ascent, a magnificent first ascent in the Himalayas. And he's also like a scientist. He's doing his PhD in the ETH University in Zurich about glaciology. So it's not very common to have athletes that they are at the same time scientists. So we will enjoy this opportunity to talk today with Christophe about his vision as a scientist and how he puts that on the practice when he's a climber, when he's an alpinist. So first of all, Christophe, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and as I mentioned, you have these two caps. Probably when you are to the mountains, like you are climbing, but you have your science mind or your science ace also. So how do you see the mountain as a climber, as a mountaineer, and also as a scientist?
Yeah, I like this question. Actually, I could also add up on what you said. When I'm doing the science, I'm also having a climbing mind, which is looking out the windows and looking forward for the weekend. I think, as a scientist and as a climber, it's pretty much the same fascination or interest to the mountain and the nature, just for the beauty. And I think what changed will be the time scale, in a way that when I'm climbing, I'm just thinking the mountains for a few days, because the line I want to climb is maybe good only in the next 3 days because of the good weather, or maybe because of the mixed or snow conditions. So it's really focused on a small time scale. When I'm a scientist and I look at the landscape, I'm more, what were the force or the drivers that make this landscape, and this is mechanism or processes that last span over 100 years, millennium or million years. So it's a different time scale in my mind, I guess.
Yeah, and talking about time scale, I think that's something that you are studying now in the PhD. I think you are doing the PhD based on water pockets in the glaciers. And how is these structures in the glacier? So can you tell us about what are these water pockets and how is this evolving? Has that been all the time there, or something that it's getting more and more common in the past years?
Yeah, well, that's the main question of my PhD. So if someone has the answer, it tells me. But basically, in theory, we think that water pocket is just a reservoir of water in the glacier. So it can be englacial in the ice or subglacial at the interface of the bedrock of the base and the ice. And by definition, is not visible from the surface. So we have very, very little information. We know that sometimes there must be water pockets in the glaciers because time to time, in average, in Switzerland, every 2 years, there is an outburst flood, which means just a huge amount of water going out of the glacier without precipitations prior to the event, or without a lake, or without seeing a lake in satellite images or plane images. So what we guess is that at some point the water is just trapped because of the ice as a dam. And it builds up a big volume of water. It can be thousands or 10,000 cubic meter. So it's big enough to make a flood. And the ice dam breaks at some time because the water pressure is too high. And so it's not. We have really, really little observation. So it's not clear exactly what's the form of this water pocket. And we don't think it. I mean, let's say there is not enough observation to say that there is a trend with climate change. It's intuitively tempting to say, maybe, warmer, like global warming of the air, so more ice melt, so more water pocket. But in another way, you have less ice, less glaciers, also less water pockets. So it's not clear if it's a risk that is increasing, but for sure it's something that is really spontaneous and hard to predict. So this is anyway, without climate change, in mind, it's anyway a danger or a threat for the population downstream.
Yeah, and talking about dangers, that sounds pretty scary. Like you are walking like close to a glacier, and one of these water pockets can break, and like we've seen like in the Alps, like the last summers with the permafrost melting, like it's getting pretty scary to climb some routes. And for you, like do you think like when you are climbing in the mountains, uh, do you see differently the risk with this knowledge as a scientist, like when you are traversing like glaciers, about these sudden collapses that can happen, or with the permafrost? Do you think it's how this scientific knowledge affects you when you are going to the mountain? Maybe change the seasons you go to the different routes than before, or it changed like how you climb a route, or you don't think on that when you are climbing?
No, for sure it changed. But I think it's also a lot of common sense that can be acquired as an experienced climber, not only as a scientist. Basically, crossing glaciers in winter seems safer than in let's say early winter when the snow is not compacted enough. So this is common sense. For permafrost, for sure, I have this in mind. But I think also I'm mostly doing alpinism in Chamonix, right? And everyone knows in Chamonix, or I hope everyone knows, that climbing late August route in permafrost, it's really a bad idea. And now every year in the news you see that the normal route of Mont Blanc is closed because there is too many rockfalls. So I think it's something that you can get with common sense. As a scientist, so I would say that when I'm in the mountains, I'm more thinking as a climber with some background than a scientist. It's again something to do with the time scale, right? For example, glacier detachment or glacier collapse, something that happened, and it's something that is climatic, driven by the climate. Like Marmolada, I think there were 11 deaths last year, hikers being hit by glacier avalanche. And this avalanche, or this glacier detachment, was triggered by the climate change. But you cannot predict it, and it's a risk that is really residual in a way that it's like serac falling. It happens. So you cannot really... I don't think you should consider this because it happens, every years, and you're at the bad place at the bad moment. But yeah, for permafrost, it's much more uniform. It's much more... it happens much more, like rock falls, because of permafrost degradation. And this I have in mind. I would say that I started mountaineering 10 years ago, and it was already something you considered at the time, that you shouldn't climb rock route too late in the summer. But even though it was 10 years ago, it changed. It already changed, so it's much worse than before to me. And as a scientist, I know something that maybe a lot of climbers don't know, is that heat is bad for the rock because it triggers rock falls. But actually, there is a time scale, or there is a time penetration of the heat in the rock, which means that you can get even bigger rock falls in the autumn, in September, in October as well. And this I have in mind. It's like, after a heat wave, you shouldn't climb in late August, September, or October, big rocky routes. Yeah. Also, there is some, in Chamonix at least, which is the mountain I know the best, there is some locations where you see, when you know that it's really prone for rockfalls.
Yeah, that's it's a good advice that normally we think like more in the summer month when it's hot, but that it keeps like
yeah, exactly. It's not only a few days; it's weeks and months to we call it the active layer that deepen with time, and there's this unfrozen and frozen cycle. Yeah.
Yeah, and you are talking about Chamonix, but you have been climbing like all over the world, like from Patagonia to Pakistan, in Himalaya. So, do you think like climate change and these phenomena are affecting the same way, or in different rates, in different ways in the different parts of the world?
Yeah, it's a good question, because global warming is global as a definition, but it's definitely not the same behavior in Pakistan. Let's take the Karakoram in Pakistan example. It's a good one because there is something that is called the Karakoram anomaly, which means that the glacier actually in Karakoram are not retreating that fast compared to Patagonia or the Alps. And I mean, that's also a climate change consequence. And it's called an anomaly because it's really unique. It's so rare, right? That glaciers are not retreating that it's an anomaly. And that's the only region, if you take the regional scale, right? Because if you take some glaciers, there's always some glaciers not shrinking that fast. But if you take as a region, that's the only location in the world where glaciers are not experiencing dramatic retreat. And that's because of two things. And you will see that one is related to humans, actually. The first one is the shift in the westerlies. So in Karakoram is more like Western Europe. Most of the bad weather is coming from the west. And this jet stream or the wind direction shifted a bit in the last century. And it brings more moisture, more precipitations. So maybe there is a bit of warmer as well, but since there is just more snow, there is more ice and glaciers are not retreating. The second hypothesis is that the moisture was increasing because of the humans' activities in the Chinese side. Because of the irrigation increase of the last century, there was just more clouds, more precipitations, and glaciers were growing. So I think it's another good example on how humans can impact the climate. Anyway, this is not true anymore. I think the last measurement they showed that Karakoram is also experiencing some retreat. So we expect this anomaly to be over in the next years or decades. And in Patagonia, it's a bit more classic in a way that, there is warming for sure. It's less high in elevation, right? So, I mean, Karakoram is really high. You know, there's peaks above 7,000 meters. So even though it's warmer, it's still really cold. Patagonia, it's a bit different. It's warmer. There is glacier retreating for sure, but there is also high interannual variability. So you can have years that are really good for glaciers and years really bad for glaciers. Yeah. But I mean, you can see. In Patagonia, you also have this frost issue, actually.
Yeah, no, it's interesting to see that the Pakistan that the glaciers were still growing on that way, and to see why that it can be the mixture from humans, or as you mentioned that the wind change and we see personally I live in Norway, and we see here that probably is getting more precipitation because it's more warmer, so it's more moisture too.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to the Southern Europe, where it's more like heat waves and more periods without any precipitation, and so it's not affecting the same ways climate change, but it's affecting somehow changing the landscapes. And another question I have what about what you know that it's happening and all the knowledge on the problems that can be related to climate change. What do you think climbers, alpinists can do? What do you think is the best way to act for preserving the mountains?
Well, I think climbers have actually a nice role to play because they can increase or they can raise awareness. Because they are the one of the first witnessing the climate change in the mountains, and this is because climate change in the mountains is even stronger than outside. Like in the Alps, for example, the warming is twice faster and twice as important as the mean or the average, and that's called the mountain amplification. There are some physical processes that makes the warming even faster in the mountains. And so it's not +1 since 1900s, it's +2 in the Alps. The degree, I'm talking about the degrees Celsius of increase. And that's huge. I mean, it's 2 degrees instead of 1 makes a huge difference. And because there is ice, there is snow, there is permafrost, you see it. I don't think you see +1 degree in a city, but +2 degree in the mountains, you see it for sure. So I think as a climber, you go on the mountain and you go back with stories. That's what climbers do, telling the stories. And you can definitely raise awareness through stories, pictures, movies to the broad audience. So I think that would be something easy to do for sure, and with a big outcome.
Yeah, and related to that, like I think I'm kind of on the same position. Like I want to raise awareness, like about what's going on, and also like I know I acknowledge that my my lifestyle, or if I want to climb, like I also have a footprint that it's pretty big, or it's not negligible. So like do you think we will see like mountaineering different in the future, either because mountains will change or because we will, I don't know, like probably like if we see in the 80s or in the 90s, like we were like traveling a lot too, like we were like people were climbing like in 5 continents every year, and it's great. Like I love traveling, and I love like exploring places, but also like knowing that it's a big footprint. So you think like climbing will change in a way, or do you think it will became the same, just with different like it's like I don't know the solution. I don't know if it's a solution. I don't know if it's if we need to change the way to do it, or if it's like what's the place between like raising awareness and like also like changing the model
of course we also we also have this dilemma, right, of traveling and climbing, but I think it will change for sure, and I think it changed already. It's a bit less accepted that. Well, let's put it this way. I think there is more and more climbers, known climbers, that have models, for brands or for climbers in general, that travel in a more eco-friendly way. So we were talking about Piolets just at the introduction, and this year Piolets or special mention. I think I lost you. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Sorry. So special mention was given for women going to Greenland with a sailboat, and the trip they have done. So it's called Sedna. There's a good movie about it. The trip they had done was 3 months long, for only a few days climbing. And but it was kind of eco-friendly, right? You take a sailboat, you go to Greenland, it takes 4 weeks, you climb, you go back, it takes another 4 weeks. And I think there is more and more of this approach on the movie festival and reports and climbing literature. So I think it's also new inspiration, new approach to follow, new people to imitate. So I think it's gonna change this way. I guess so. Yeah. People seems to be more.
Also like
yeah,
you were mentioning the Piolets that one of the things that they value is the approach, like with the environment, like not to use the helicopters, or like also like even like fixing in the mountain, even if it's not like a big impact, but it's somehow like some kind of pollution, or somehow some kind of like limiting the access to the mountains. So I'm with you that that we are seeing probably more this trend of like, in a way, like I think it's also like in a way we see this trend with like top climbers like yourself and others, and in another way we see the other part in Himalayan climbing with like it's a big industry that is kind of just like not really caring about the environment, but how also like how can we influence as climbers to the more like popular mountaineer, people that goes to the mountains. There is a duty.
There is a duty to. I think not every climbers like to talk about what they have done and going in the media and stuff, but I think increasing awareness on alpine style and small team in the mountains is, I guess, much better than making Netflix documentaries on climbing 8,000 meters peak in 6 months. So I was thinking about this yesterday because there's this article on the 3 American climbing north face of Janu, in Nepal, and that's one of the most incredible ascents in the last years. And they made it to the New York Times. The New York Times. So there was an article on 3 guys climbing alpine style in the New York Times, saying that what they have done is an order of magnitude harder of climbing Everest by the normal route. And I think the public targeted in the New York Times is the right people who could go in Everest because it sounds cool, but say people are doing actually. It seems that mountaineering is actually something else. So yeah, and there is some good example around to have hope that Himalayan style will change in the next future.
Yeah, I think that was a good example of
climbing Everest and without all this support and coming back with a movie, and I think it's great.
Yeah, no, I think it's good to switch the conversation about more alpinism than like mountain tourism, also because of that, like as you mentioned, like more or less impact. But yeah, no, I think that's that was great, and thank you for the conversation. It's been like I think our listeners would learn a lot about the glaciers, and I hope they get a bit more interest on like going to find some studies. And where do you normally if you have some publications, where do you publish that? Where can people follow your work?
I'm a very, I'm a scientist in a classic definition, which means that I publish in peer-reviewed journal that are really not meant to be read by the public, because it's really academic. Usually you don't even have open access, which sucks. But so I mean, you Google my name and you will find my article, but they are not written for someone who don't know much. That's the thing in research, is like it's a bit of a bubble, and we are working all together as scientists. But when we want our work to be published for outreach or to be understandable for many, we have to ourselves do the extra effort to write in another way or in another language. But basically we do that time to time. So we have a Twitter account for my lab, and we try to let people know what we're doing time to time, also in a outreach way. So that would be a good start to see what I'm doing. But otherwise I'm not so present actually in the webs.
No, we will put the link to the BAM glaciology.
You can put the link of the FAOV laboratory. You also know Matthias, right? Yeah, and I think you chat with Matthias.
Yeah, so we had an interview with Matthias before here, and it was a good talk. And also, I think ATH is doing a good work, also on showing some studies on a more population friendly way, I think ATH has good resources for general public to see the data. So we will put the links on that. We hope you the best in climbing and in your PhD. I don't know what feels harder, to go climbing a new route in Pakistan or the PhD.
For sure. People, after the Piolets, people ask, what's the next climb? You climb something, people wants to know what's next. I mean, you should know that, I guess. What's next? And I say, well, the next big climb is defending the PhD next spring for sure. So, but I go to Norway to visit your place actually in a few weeks. Yeah. So.
Yeah, that now we have cold temperatures and summer snow. So I hope you can enjoy some of the mountains here, and best of luck for your PhD.
Thanks, Kilian. Cheers. Ciao. Thanks.